It's a special edition of the weekly. The reason it's a special edition is because it's a special day for Everton Football Club as they finally adopted, or a company's adopted Everton as the new owners of the football club. Um, the Friedkin group are now with us, and Farhad Moshiri is no more. I'm not too sure what people are more excited about, really. Moshiri going, or the Friedkins coming in. Got Rob and Keith here as well. Looking at all of this and sort of trying to digest everything that's come about. I mean, I'll come to you first, Rob. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and we'll get into the finer details of how long it's taken to actually get a new ownership, and how long you've had Farhad Moshiri sort of kicking the can down the road and not being involved, and nobody knowing where he is, and various things like that, and the club going to shit in more ways than one. This is finally done, and you can see a lot of celebrations on social, a little bit, so many, probably a right reason to do so. I've gone a bit over the top. Me being one of them, but more in a personal way to friends and whatnot, rather than screaming out that these guys are going to come and will end up winning the Premier League within the next couple of years. But it's done, and they've released a statement that comes out with all the usual stuff that you'd expect the new ownership to talk about, in particular about knowing what Everton are, the sort of culture side of things, the community side of things, how important it is to the city. When it was finally declared, I know Keith's going to tell me about his love of Moshiri, because I've seen his tweet earlier today. So I'll let you start there, Rob. How did you feel about that finally going over the line today?
I mean, I feel relieved, and I feel I'm gonna feel optimistic. I think today is the day to feel optimistic. Today is the day to, given everything that we've been through, and really, I think the last several years have almost felt indistinguishable season to season. It's just felt like one long extended period of malaise. And so I think that today, yes, there are lots of answers to come and questions to be addressed and issues that will need sorting. But I think today is a day to feel good about the fact that we no longer have an absentee owner, that seemingly a much more professional operation is coming in. I think that you alluded to the statements that were made on social media by the club and by the incoming chair. Not only the new owner, but I think the incoming. Is it the CEO, or is it? I can't remember the guy's position. Maybe it's the chairman, the temporary chairman of the board. I can't remember. There was a couple of those different statements, but one thing that I noticed that was a common theme through both of them were, you said, Dave, that there's kind of all the stuff you expect, but I think there was a bit of a soberness to those statements. There was not a lot of fluffy talk about winning titles and going, doing all kind of talk, looking sky high at expectations that right now just don't even feel realistic. I think it was a very kind of sober, like, we're, acknowledging what Evertonians care about, but also acknowledging that there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of things that will be coming, that they're going to be taking a kind of methodical approach to something that's going to take some real time. I think now, though, that the difference between today and yesterday is that we no longer have to continue to be in this state of just thinking, well, every decision we make has to be about just holding on. I think now we can begin to look at the possible versus what is the possible in the best kind of way versus the possible in the, well, there's not much that's possible right now, so we just kind of have to bear through it. I mean, we have been kind of enduring for a while, so I think from that standpoint it's good. There's a lot to be addressed, and there's a lot of details. There's a lot of people that I would love to be gone tomorrow, but from the club. But I am going to adopt a stance of real patience here. I think that there are a lot of things that even if the new owners have already begun to figure out in terms of the moves they want to make, that the timing of making said moves is going to be delicate and critical, especially given PSR. I don't expect a super heavy January. I don't expect the manager to be sacked immediately or anything like that. But I do think that now the clock finally starts on the ability for a club that is no longer in debt and that has adults and professionals apparently running the thing. I think that now we can at least begin to view the future of the club in ways that feel actually tangible versus just this thing that may or may not happen. So from that standpoint, feeling good today, looking forward to what's to come. And I was excited about Moshiri when he came in. So I honestly want to temper all of this with, let's wait and see. But, just based on the body of work overall and notwithstanding Roma having kind of a trying time right now, and there are reasons for that. This has got to, I think that just from the low bar of it being better than what it's been, that I feel like maybe there's a real chance for something, but I'm kind of unable to get too excited, but today I think is about feeling good. And that's kind of what I've decided to do.
Yeah. I mean, coming to Keith now, I mean, the term I've said so far is sort of cautiously optimistic here, given what we've said so many times, haven't we? The dawn's here now, and we've been through all sorts of shit, and then we've got something else following up there that's going to be really positive, and how much money Moshiri brought with him, how much that was pissed away on piles and piles and piles of shite. Ultimately, he's gone now, which I'm sure you'll be delighted to talk about first of all. But your initial feelings that it wasn't 777, it wasn't all of these different companies and businesses that have been linked to coming in. It's one that seems legit about football, in about what it does with it, with what the company is. I know it's in entertainment and whatnot with that, but these guys, I know, it's easy things to say, isn't it? As we've just looked at there with the press release and whatnot. But what are you feeling about all this at the moment?
Honestly, there's a sense of relief that the portrait in the attic has finally been smashed up and he's on his way. I just like we've alluded to, it's cautious optimism, and it has to be cautious optimism because we've been here before. We've had the false dawns. We've had this is all going to change now that this is here, and this is all going to change now that this is here. And then we ended up with Rafa Benitez as our manager. So,
yeah,
bad things can still happen. And obviously there is some skepticism given how Roma fans feel about Friedkin's ownership. I don't think they're the happiest of chaps, even though they got to see their team win a European trophy. I'm just crying out for stability, a couple of years of sensible decisions, and we don't have to race up the table. We don't have to go all out and try and win a Carabao Cup or a Worthington's Cup or whatever they're calling the bloody thing these days. Let's just call it the Milk Cup because that was the first thing I know.
Back in the day,
yeah. The cynic in me sees it all going badly wrong. The hopeful, optimistic Evertonian child in me sees us winning the FA Cup next season with Jose Mourinho as the manager. By the way, that would be the worst possible it could make, but it would be so box office. It would be so if Mourinho came in, we'd either win the lot or cease to exist as a club within 3 years.
There's no in between.
For either eventuality, I'd be happy with either.
Less than 10 minutes in, and we're already to Mourinho, which I think is incredible.
we've got to get that out of the way, haven't we? We've got to get that over and done with. Yeah, I think this is the first time, and I'm going to say this now. This is probably the first time in my adult life that it looks like Everton will have a competent, qualified board in place. Because when was the last time that happened?
It's an excellent point. I'm genuinely going to say, though, Keith, genuinely with that, my lifetime, I turned 37 the other day. In my lifetime, well, obviously people would say 80s and whatnot, and there's a really good book coming out from Gav Buckland about all this, about the success in the 80s, but it wasn't as prominent as it is these days in regards to how much you're constantly looking, and the eyes are all on a boardroom. Right now, and sort of in our lifetime, it's been a pile of shite, hasn't it, really?
I mean, it says a lot about football, modern football, against modern football and all that, when you're actively looking into your football club's chief financial officer. More
than you do on the pitch as well.
As that tweet from the timeline this afternoon said, do you remember back in the day when we had the banners in the crowd trying to get Grant Ingles out? Who's Grant Ingles?
Who's Grant Ingles? Yeah.
Why did people know Grant Ingles' name? And then obviously we've proceeded to Sharpie the Panda Botherer and the headlock gate with Baxendale and Snods and Diamonds drinking the company car dry, and
oh god,
let's just hope this lot know what they're doing, for the love of God. I mean, this new interim executive chairman, Mark Watts or something. By the way, it should not be spelling his name Mark with a C. That's disgusting. That needs to change. It needs to legally change that to a Mark with a K, right?
Yeah.
He looks like he should be on a board somewhere. He looks very Wall Street.
Yeah.
Well, his first name abuse aside, I think he points out something that I keep thinking too, which we have made it this far and survived despite all of the incompetence and dysfunction. And I think it almost feels like, not to do that whole thing of, can you imagine if we did this much with Moyes and no money? Imagine if we had money and then it all went to shit. But I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where we just have a competent, boring board that maybe that's enough to just propel us on its own. But I'm with Keith in terms of kind of looking at this. I'm a big picture guy, and 2 seasons of just them getting things stable, and in particular, I think the thing I'm most excited about, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but I know that there's got to be some others that I'm excited about how many players are out of contract at the end of this season. I am excited about, frankly, just seeing new faces as much as possible. I'm tired of seeing some of the long-term fixtures here that only remind me of losing and heartbreak and misery. I'd like for as many of those to be gone as possible, but I'm also a realist in that the transition will have to be somewhat methodical, probably not as fast as we would all like, but we have been able to survive with barely any funding, with complete dysfunction and disarray, and banter stories about headlocks and a million other things that we will have enough podcast content to talk about the bad old Moshiri days forever. On an Everton 11, I'm sure at some point. But I am kind of focused on the idea that just adding basic competency is already something that can provide some upside that we've just not even been able to fathom for so many years. Our expectations for this thing, guys, have gotten so low that we get way too excited about draws or one win after eight games of not winning and all of those things. I'm not expecting Champions League or anything like that right away, but what I am expecting is to kind of get back to actually having basic standards again, and being able to say that it's that losing is bad, and that this is unacceptable again, versus, well, what can we do? We're waiting to be sold, and we're just going to have to hang on. I am tired of living in this miserable purgatory that we've been stuck in for years. I'm ready to at least look at a side going into the new stadium next season, where we can at least look at them and say, know that it's not going to be a finished product or anything like that, but we'll be able to look at a squad and hopefully a new manager and a new outlook and say, hey, this is something we can get behind. And there's some hope. There's some light at the end of the tunnel that this is actually going in an actual direction versus down the toilet. So from that standpoint, maybe I'm sounding a little too positive. Maybe I'm already a little biased towards this guy because, as I said on social media earlier, he's a fellow Texan. He's a fellow Toyota guy like me. And he has been successful in his other ventures, and even Roma having their bad season right now. I mean, they've already won a trophy during his time there. So, I feel like there's at least some reasons for optimism. I'm not going to hot take this, and I don't think anyone should today, because we're almost always proven wrong whenever we try to hot take this kind of stuff. But I think today is a day to celebrate change and celebrate that something different is finally starting. And there will be plenty of time to litigate every important decision that gets made from here. I definitely would love to hear from you guys. Like I was talking about this with Les the other day on Kickabout, which was, what do we think is going to be one of the first big tests for the new ownership? I think everyone kind of rightly points to Kevin Thelwell or the manager, but I think that those things will also take time. I'm very curious to see, whenever a new owner comes into most sports, they always try to kind of draw a line under some big decision that they make, an acquisition of a player or retaining a player. For me, I think the kind of canary in the coal mine in some way is going to be what gets done about Jared Branthwaite. Is that a contract that gets, actually a new contract that actually gets extended? Do we say this is a player we're building around? Or does he get sold and then we ask the questions of, okay, so what does this mean? What are we doing with this money now that we're in a financially stable position? I feel like what we see, in this next several months in regards to Branthwaite, who I don't expect to get sold or anything in January, but someone who I think will be heavily linked to, and already is, to clubs like City and United. I think that's going to be kind of telling in terms of, what does the Friedkin group consider to be reasonable ambition at this stage of things, versus what do they maybe consider doing as a way to begin to rebuild the foundations of a club that's going to frankly have a lot of holes to fill in that squad beginning next season. But just curious what you guys think about, kind of what the first big decision is. Is it as simple as Thelwell and Dyche, or is it something else that maybe we're not considering?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting what you said today. Sorry, Keith. Go on, Keith. Far away.
I think Thelwell, you have to give him a bit of an opportunity under what we hope to be a stable board and a stable platform to actually go out and be able to do his job and not be putting out fires every 10 minutes. Dyche, I think, is immediately on probation based off league position. Result. I mean, sorry, no, I'm being harsh there in terms of results, because we've lost 2 in 11, which isn't terrible, but we haven't won a lot. So
that start to the season, Keith, though. I mean, given the fixtures, is really, really bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And now we have this tough run coming up. I think you have to say he's on probation right now. Yeah. They're not going to come in and sack him before Sunday.
Agreed.
Right? So he's got maybe Chelsea at home, City away, Forest at home. That's 2 home games and sort of an away free hit where they're going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at the teams he puts out. They're going to be looking at like the squad he has available and what he's doing with it. And I think those 3 games could be as much as he gets because I can't see us getting much out of them. I mean, like this time last season, you'd have said Forest at home was a banker. Not now. Not now, the way they're flying and we're straggling and can't score goals. Chelsea at home. I mean, we have a decent record against Chelsea at home, but they're second in the table for a reason.
Yeah.
They're very good side. Cole Palmer, despite looking like an archer at the Battle of Agincourt, is probably the best footballer in the league right now. And then City away. I know City are an absolute shambles at the moment. It's City away and it's Everton. We haven't really done well there since the days of Cahill and Arteta.
Right.
So, I mean, is he going to get any points from the next 3 games? And if he doesn't, do they have to then make a decision before January to allow a new manager to come in and have some input on players that might need to come in the January window?
Yeah. Well, and Keith, so you bring up something that Dave, I want you to, I'm curious what you think of this too, but Keith, you're kind of articulating this timeline tied to the fixtures, which I see the logic in it. I think to me, the bigger takeaway now is that we've constantly been framing the performance of the team and Dyche in particular based on this sort of backstop notion of, well, it's not like you can get rid of him anyway. And it's not like you can, it's not like we have any reasonable options without, with the ownership being in flux, right? Well, now let's be real. The biggest thing keeping Dyche in his job is now been removed. Now it is about what do the results begin to look like. I would argue that it is naive to think that during this entire period of the Friedkin group going through all of their digging and their due diligence and going through the process of being approved, that they have not been talking to or considering or pondering a change at manager and what that plan would look like. However, I do think that they probably view the season the way most of us do, which is it's a cleaner financial transaction, if you will, if Dyche can somehow just keep this thing afloat, because the only point of this season is to get to the stadium with, being in the Premier League, right? To a large degree.
Yeah.
However, now if the results, the run of results is so bad that they begin to think, and because let's be real, you said, Keith, maybe I've been harsh on the results. We did not get enough points from that relatively soft set of fixtures to start the season. So now we're in a position where it will only take, to your point, Keith, a few of these games, and suddenly we are in a tenuous position. But now we actually have an ownership that can step in and say, okay, it'd be one thing if we're feeling good about making it. If this is where we're at, even if with the minor strengthening we can maybe do in January, which I'm still not expecting much, I think that becomes a scenario where they then have to make a change. But I'm willing to be patient on them kind of figuring out what that timing is. I think Dyche is inevitably gone at worst by the end of this season. I mean, barring some weird events that I can't foresee right now. But I think that the point is that now we can actually look at Dyche actually has to do the job and is not going to be saved by our inability to sack him like has been the case for the last year plus.
He'd have to be. I think it's up the stakes for him. Because, like you rightly say, there's nobody there to sack him. And I've made this point quite a lot recently, is that Sean Dyche is not going to get a bigger club than Everton, and I don't mean that in terms of waving our blue flags and stuff like that. I mean it in terms of he will not get a bigger team than Everton in regards to what he can do with them in the Premier League. He's not going to go past the side the mid-table at the absolute best, which is essentially what Everton should be, given the squad we've got and given everything else that we see in the Premier League. Everton being 12th and comfortably not being involved in relegation fights by when you get to March, that should be where we are, in my opinion. It should be a relatively comfortable season. What Keith, you mentioned at the start there, how much you give for Everton to just be pretty mundane and just, and I would give, I said to a friend the other day, I would absolutely love it if Everton had the most boring season I've ever seen for years. You remember, like, when under Moyes, you'd have those 11th place seasons and stuff like that. I'd be absolutely buzzing with that. And what you've got here with these guys coming in.
As soon as we went out the FA Cup.
Yeah.
As soon as we went out the FA Cup in like late Feb, March, early April at the best, that was it. Everything was done. Brilliant. Happy days.
Yeah.
We can relax. We can all take stock and we'll go again in August.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Like worrying about results all the way into May.
It's exhausting.
Is stressful, and I don't like it.
No, and you'll get caught.
Honestly, like the last 3 years have aged us as a fan base.
Yeah, they actually have. They have really, and you know, I've finally gone Rob Vera effort because of that. Because I was looking like Marv when he gets electrocuted on Home Alone 2. With these new guys coming in, it does change the perspective that we've got with Dyche. I'd be surprised given what their history is, because I remember working it out a few weeks ago. They've sacked as many managers as we have in the last 10 years, if you don't include caretaker managers and whatnot with Ferguson and things like that. I think they went through 10 and 11 in 13 years, which, you know, obviously we're very used to with that sort of thing. That doesn't mean that it's a bad thing in many ways. It doesn't automatically mean. I mean, you look at Chelsea, how much Chelsea have succeeded by actually doing that, and Everton and Chelsea. But when people say to me quite a lot that, oh, you can't sack a manager again, we're always sacking managers to try and change things, and it never works. But that doesn't. The alternate to that is it doesn't mean that things are going to improve just because you won't sack somebody. It's not. It's not.
You can't like give them free rein to keep.
No, exactly. That's
worse.
exactly the point. That's exactly the point. It's not just we can't sack another manager. That doesn't automatically mean that the guy that's in there now is going to do any better than anybody else. So with these, it seems to me what we've seen and looked at and read about them and whatnot, they have that sort of clinical edge about changing things when they think it's needed. I like that idea. I think that's exactly what we need. I think that if you're Sean Dyche and as soon as you wake up or as soon as you found out that these were taking over, I'd have been much more concerned than I was before that. You mentioned those 3 games that are going to come up. Which, if we were to take 3 points, I'd see that as a massive gain, probably for Dyche as well. Which he'd obviously milk, which he does anyway, like we did at Arsenal the other day. Where we are in terms of what comes to fruition in January, we simply don't know about. Are they able to add players to us? The statement he came out with was quite interesting. Quite, you usually, like I said before, when we started, you get the usual sort of language. But when they said in the short term, we understand that the club has faced significant challenges on and off the pitch for several years. This is why our immediate priority is stabilising the club and improving results on the pitch. That to me points towards as soon as you possibly can, and there's a transfer window open in 2 weeks' time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't indicate to me that first he's going to sit back and have a look at what's going on, and then secondly to that, are they approaching Sean Dyche and saying, "What are your plans here? If we give you X amount, or are you able? Is these loans we're going to be doing over January?"
Does anyone want Dyche spending any more of our money? Like
that's exactly right. That exactly the point I'm making there is. Where I
think he spent a ton. I'm just saying that Dyche is a short-term thinker. Dyche is I'm going to start a 40-year-old, fullback and Michael Keane. And, and again, I'm not saying that there weren't reasons to have to do some of those things, but I'm telling you that, you give a guy like that transfer budget and he will go, he will look for, short-term guys that will get him from point A to point B. And we now need to begin to move forward from thinking in those terms and starting to think more strategically. If Kevin Thelwell is this identifier of talent that everyone says he is, now there are no excuses. He should be able to do some of those things, but we read those quotes. I feel like it was just a couple weeks ago where Sean Dyche kind of alluded, or there was some story or some anecdote about him and Thelwell where Thelwell wanted to sign certain guys and that Dyche would say no, or he would ultimately have the final say. I do not want a guy who, by all accounts, does not have a real future here making decisions about the medium and long term in terms of signing players, period, end of.
So you've got the anomaly there, haven't you, Keith, going into what Rob just said there? You've got an anomaly there, like Jake O'Brien. Look at Jake O'Brien there as well. Where's that come from? Where's Jake O'Brien? Have they got him? Who's approved that? It's certainly not Sean Dyche. It doesn't look like that, does it?
No. So moving into January, right? My view on this is the manager shouldn't be signing players anyway. If you have a director of football and a scouting department, which apparently we've got, I don't know if maybe he just goes on Football Manager and searches like out of contract, born before 1990 or something, whatever. If it's Sean Dyche is going to stay in his job until the end of the season, then we should not be making a single permanent signing in January. We should be making the most of the loan market, bring in players that will fit into a Sean Dyche system until the end of the season, or a short-term deal, maybe an 18-month contract if you're going to sign someone on a permanent, right? You don't want to get yourself tied down again to 4 or 5 year contracts for dead weight that are going to be no use to a system after August has passed.
Mikulenko and Patterson all over again. I don't want that all over again.
I don't know what we can do in terms of the loan market because obviously we've got a few in at the moment. If we could send Jack Harrison back to Leeds, that would be great. I'd be really happy with that. I'd give him a lift. I'll pay for his train. I'll even buy him like a pret-a-manger to eat on the train on the way back. Whatever. Just get him out of my sights.
Maybe a case of complimentary hair gel on the way out too.
Oh God, my favorite thing about Jack Harrison is the fact it took that Albanian Broja account 10 minutes of watching Everton to despise Jack Harrison to the level that I do.
Mate, that's right. That's exactly why I'm sat here drinking iron brew because it's got vodka.
So if we can manipulate the loan market, you've got to bring in a left back.
Do you rely Dyche on that though, Keith? Do you stick with Dyche with that?
No.
Even loans.
Yeah, if he's going to still be there in May, then you have to let him bring in a loan that's going to fit his system, or you have to let him have an input. Yeah. You have to let him identify the type of player he wants to play at left back, and then you have to trust your director of football and your scouting team to go out and find that player or that style of player, bring them in. If it's for 6 months until the end of the season, brilliant. Yeah, do that. And then we reassess as it comes to the summer. Like Rob alluded to earlier, there's so many players out of contract next summer. So it's a huge rebuild regardless of who's wearing the tracksuit with their initials on it come August, right? That's fine, but that is why you do not want to be going out in this January window and throwing money here, there, and everywhere. And then, let's face it, Jared Branthwaite probably goes in the summer. Yeah,
maybe. I think that's an open question with new ownership who may want to make a statement by retaining him, but he might go, and if he does, then we've got to do that right. But I don't want Dyche making decisions in January that then impact the domino effect of what happens when we sell Branthwaite and need to buy other players. Yeah.
That's why you need to you keep your powder dry. You wait until, if you know he's going in the summer and you know how much you're bringing in for him, you don't want to have already spent that before he goes. You want to have that available, say, the couple of weeks before he goes, before it all gets announced, before like teams start holding you to ransom and whatnot. And then you go out and say, right, we know we've got 70 million, 80 million, whatever, coming in 2 weeks' time. So we spend these 2 weeks and we sign 4 players for 20 million each. They're not global stars. They're not going to set the world on fire, but they're going to fill out a squad and they're going to be able to do a job in the new manager system. It's going to be a new man. Sean Dyche won't be in charge in August unless, as we've touched on earlier, we go charging up the table, finish in Europe, win a cup. He won't be the manager in August. There's no chance.
And that's exactly why.
Early, who's going to come in as the next manager as well? That's something you need. They need to be looking at that from day one. Who's going to be in charge on the first day of the season next year? That's something that they need to start working on now.
I said earlier this month, I was saying, you know what, the situation in terms of the run of games that we've got, Everton aren't going to get much from them. That draw against Arsenal was surprising for most of us, if not all of us.
Yeah,
great.
So the thing about that, and that's Dyche will be sitting at home thinking, I'm proving them wrong here and criticising me. I think he's that kind of guy and that kind of manager who'd come out and say, do you know what, he stuck to my game plan and it worked, it was efficient, and we got a draw. Probably one of the most difficult away games that you can get in the Premier League. Well done, Sean. Pat on the back and all that sort of thing. But one of the points I made, it's pretty out there. I was saying that if you're looking at changing a manager and you're the ownership that was imminent of coming in, would you not look at getting a manager in? Maybe not immediately, but have a look and sort of sound out a few that you might be interested in as soon as you can. Because if you're running into it, and this is very, very negative, but it is me, when you're running into a list of games that you're pretty much assuming that you've not got a chance of winning up until Forest, like you say, Keith, but they're a different animal now. You get to that point and I'm thinking, well, if you had somebody in there, surely there's not much to lose because you're assuming that Dyche loses them. Would you have somebody else already prepared, if not already bringing them in? And I know it's far-fetched and obviously it's never going to happen, but just that line of thought there, when you've got these guys coming in who are renowned for changing things up when they absolutely need to, they are quite lethal when it comes to that. You go through this run of games now, like you said.
We're back on Jose again, aren't we?
Well, this is it. This is sort of what I'm hinting at in terms of what you said there. He has to go through miracles here to keep his Everton job. And like you said there, that you are looking at top half finish minimum is when they'll look at, you know what, we'll give him another year's deal. We'll give him another 18 months, whatever it is. I'd be astounded if that happens. I'd go as far as saying now that they're in, I'd be astounded if he finishes this season off. If Everton are still in this position now in end of February, I'd bin him then. Well, personally, I'd get rid of him as soon as possible because despite what you've said there, Keith, about, if he's still there, you go into the loan market, you don't buy any players, regardless of the situation with Dyche, you don't buy any players because look at the results we've had there. Thelwell aside, we don't fully know the way in which they're working together, even if they are working together, or whether it's Sean Dyche's final decision or not. If you go into that position, then you get rid of him then because nothing's changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. And more to the point, I think that the wider issue with all of this that we haven't spoken about, Rob, is that could a better manager get more out of who we currently have? And I think that's inevitably yes. And that is why I get rid of him as soon as possible, really, because I think we're not going to go through, the time to go through player by player, but you look at the squad Everton have got. Look, we all got issues with Calvert-Lewin, all got issues with Beto. Brozier we haven't seen yet. It's a couple of little promising cameos and whatnot. You want to see him getting some game time. That side of things is difficult. I imagine it's going to be difficult if you get any manager in the world on there to get Everton into a goal-scoring free side. I don't think that's going to happen, even if you brought Guardiola in. But what I would say is the squad we have is better than where it is. And that is solely, not solely, it couldn't be, could it? Because you can't go on the pitch and kick the ball. But that is a lot of why Everton are in where they are, is because of the manager. We can sit here all day, and we have done in the past, in recent seasons. You look at manager, you mentioned Benitez, what you said there when he was in there. You know, you think of what we've gone and done, Lampard, those managers there, and you sit there and think, oh, do you know what? You're looking at that team and you're thinking, do you know what? It's probably level par that Everton are fighting to stay in the Premier League. I think when you look at that table, and it's the same this season like it was last, where like I'd say Ipswich are like the Luton of last season, sort of thing like that. It's not hard to stay up in this division.
No.
And that squad we have, I would say, is at least as competitive as at least 6 sides in there in that bottom half of the table. So whilst we've not had and I'd love to have seen it sort of sliding door moments. If we still had a board, would they have got rid of him yet? I presume not, because you gang of fucking idiots, weren't they? But now that this can change, I think there's a value in getting rid of him as soon as possible, because Everton shouldn't be in a relegation fight. I don't think we will get relegated, and that's positive for me to say. Many of our listeners who get on top of me for being negative all the time. So there's already that, as well as getting anybody in January. So I'd even go further than what you said there, Keith, and I wouldn't even look at fucking loans with him. Do you know what I mean? Because who's he going to get out that's better than who we've got, who'd want to come to Everton, who clubs have released to go to Everton? I can't foresee Everton going and getting a player on loan that would come to us who couldn't get a better loan option from where they leave. And you see good players out there. You'll probably see a low from Chelsea who they want to throw out on loan. Ironically, we've got one of them, but which means we can't get another, doesn't it? Or can get 2, whatever. But clubs and those players aren't going to want to come to Everton on loan. That's just not going to be the way things are. But I know I've gone a long way around it and saying exactly why I get rid of Dyche as soon as possible.
I think, Dave, I think one bigger point that I think you've uncovered in all this, I think that we are throughout this discussion about January is maybe a broader discussion of the things that need to be done. Like, we're sitting here talking about the inevitability of all of these players out of contract, right? So it would logically then suggest that a big piece of what needs to be accomplished, like, again, how many times have we talked about this, Dave? Everton have done a very poor job over the last several years of not taking advantage of the quote, irrelevant state that they've been in terms of like the last several months of a season when they're out of cups, even when they've been in positions, even when Everton have been in positions where we're probably safe or whatever. We don't spend much time learning what we have, taking an inventory, if you will, of what we've got. And I think that almost becomes doubly important when we have this many players out of contract in the summer. That would then suggest that it is incumbent upon those still here to figure out in this squad who can play and who can be let go. Now, some of them are players that we frankly know more than enough about, like this talk, and I even saw it alluded to today, that the club is still, modestly confident in signing a Calvert-Lewin to an extension. I don't get it. I don't understand why, unless the idea is that you're going to resurrect his value a little bit more this season and then have him as an asset or whatever. But to me, we need to figure out, because I think there are these weird contractual clauses with guys like Broja and Shermidi and Beto and guys we've just now started paying for. And then you get to, Jake O'Brien, even Nathan Patterson to a degree. Maybe he's not long for this world either, but we know plenty about players who are clearly not going to be part of the future here. Okay. Like, this idea that, well, we can't change the line. I mean, we literally have a manager who doesn't really want to change the lineup and reward. Like, he looks at this team being in 16th place, and he has framed it to us, or 16th or 17th place at times. And he frames it to us as, this squad is so bad, it's a miracle I've even gotten us this far. Whereas people like you, Dave, and others, and I'm not sure where I fall on this, we look at the squad and think, these aren't world beaters, but they could definitely be doing better than this. Who is going to either want to come here on a loan, and or what club is going to want to loan a player that because a lot of clubs, we have to realize, use the loan market. They loan their players out so that they can develop them. Why would they send them to a manager who never wants to play even his own young prospects, much less some other clubs?
Yeah.
Like Sean Dyche does not care about Everton next season or the season after that. He is only focused on, and again, I kind of get it, he's focused on the job ahead. And when you're out of contract like Sean Dyche is, he is only concerned about him and what his CV looks like by the end of the season. So survival is all he cares about, which is fine. And by the way, if Everton think that Sean Dyche can get us to the end of the season surviving and they want to save the PSR hit, fine. But to your point, Dave, I do think if they have identified a manager that they want to go into Bramley-Moore with, who they think can be a long-term solution, and he is available in January, then I'm fine making that move. But if not, then I'm fine with some interim, appointment or retaining Dyche. I guess I can grin and bear that. But I think your point is spot on that these decisions around adding players or what have you should not be left to someone who is clearly not part of the future. Everton have not done a good enough job of figuring out what they already have in this squad. So I don't really think that throwing new players at that who he probably won't play really makes much sense either.
Would you burn him as soon as possible, Keith?
I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I've been saying this. I've been saying, get rid of him for weeks. But it's probably a time where we do need to have a little bit of patience with the new owners coming in. And you want that sort of smooth transition. Are you going to get that by getting rid of the manager and bringing in a new manager along with the new owners, and then everything's sort of a little bit chaotic? I mean, he's probably got to go. If I'm brutal about it, he probably has to go, and before the end of this season.
Well, do you have an idea? See, it's an unfair question to ask you, but if he miraculously went and stay undefeated until New Year, then that's where it becomes difficult to talk about.
Then it becomes So say I don't think they'll sack him before Forest.
Right.
I don't think they'll come in and make that decision immediately, unless we get 7 or 8 off Chelsea on Sunday, in which case he has to go 20 minutes after full time. If not sooner.
20 minutes before it.
Half time, just bin him. Get Duncan on the phone. Any chance you can make it here for half time?
So if we're all on the agreement that, look, if he does the inevitable and say if he was to get 9 points now, the fickle nature of fans are, well, you can't. It's impossible to sack him if he went to do that.
If he gets 9 points from the next 3, then I'd give him the keys to Bramley-Moore, because he's not going to do that.
That's the point I'm making. I know you're being facetious there, but I mean it in the way of.
If that happens,
the perception we all had was that if he gets to the summer and we're shaking hands and saying, "Nice one for keeping us up, Sean, but you're not the man to take us to Bramley-Moore," he makes things a difficult decision if he starts doing well. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, that if he does that,
what's the evidence to suggest that, Dave? What's the evidence to suggest any of that?
Purely, this is purely hypothetical question to you guys. But the only reason I'm throwing that in there is how far new owners go with him, and you keep him in that long just because it's based on his success, or like these have been ruthless at Roma. Do you come in, And you've already probably had this. Well, you've already had the discussions as soon as Moshiri even looked and said, "You know what? I might sell this to you guys." They've probably sat there and looked at it and thought, "Right, he's a pile of shit. He's going. Don't want that player anymore. We're giving this X amount of money. We're going to go for him as the next manager." Is that? I think that's more time stamped than it is looking at what Sean Dyche goes and does, because, like you say, you don't go to the ridiculous end of eternity thinking that Sean Dyche is going to do a job where Everton get in the top 6 or top 7, because it's not going to happen.
No, it's not. Right.
They wouldn't. But the point I'm saying is they wouldn't make that assumption. So surely they have in mind when you're planning on getting rid of him.
The ideal situation for them is the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because it means that we've progressed into a position of safety.
But what's that minimum requirement? Just safety?
Yeah, but like lower mid-table. Yeah.
Right.
So say hypothetically over these next 3 games, he gets 4 points. That's a good return from those 3 fixtures. It moves us up into that sort of 13th, 14th rather than 15th, 16th. Yeah. Then you look at that. You've got Bournemouth away at the start of next year. You've got Villa at home, Spurs at home, right? Those are 3 winnable games, realistically, against sides who will be expecting to beat us, right? But they're not. It's not outside the realms of possibility that we win those games. Say from those games he gets 4 points. It's about average. It's about median. Win 1, lose 1, draw 1. Yeah? That then keeps us in that 13, 14, possibly up to 12 bracket. Yeah? That's progress from where we are right now. It's safe. It's stable. Fucking stable is the key word here, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. Then you move past there. You've got Brighton away. Brighton are a bit sort of hit and miss this year.
Yeah.
Then you have Leicester at home, Palace away, United at home, Brentford away, Wolves away. So those 5 games, you're looking at a return. You'd look at a minimum return of 9 points. So we'll say 8 points from that. 2 wins, 2 draws out of those 5.
Yeah, the exercise that Keith is doing right now, Dave, is surely what a lot of people did for the first 10 to 11 fixtures of this season, where they thought, "Oh, we'll get points here. We'll get point." Like, yeah. Here's the deal. Everyone knows how I feel about Sean Dyche. I mean, to me, it is inevitable that he's gone, because ultimately a new owner is going to come in and has to show, is going to try to make some kind of statement or impression. And let's be real, Sean Dyche is a very limited manager who serves a very specific, narrow function. And he is, in what Sean Dyche is most concerned about, is preserving a legacy that enables him to essentially become the new Allardyce every season in the Premier League, where, Sheffield United or whomever is going to come and just hire him to kind of keep him safe, and then they'll get rid of him as soon as they can, because this is not the kind of manager that you ultimately build around. And that's fine. I think the only real question is the timing of it. To Keith's point, yes, if we could be stable, for a bit, then and you find some, and you don't let him spend money in January, but you find a way to just bridge to next season, and you give a new manager a fresh start in the summer, fine. However, Dave, if to me, the best answer to this is, let's see where we are at the end of this month. And to me, by the end of this month, we're going to know everything that we need to know about whether or not, Sean Dyche is like, it used to be a question of, well, even if we've had a run of bad results, is Sean Dyche still just capable of scraping us over the line? We had no margin of error because we had no ability to replace the manager. Now we have the ability to replace the manager. So they can now look at that fine margin of error that we have and say, We think it's more of a risk to keep him in than hiring someone new who we think, plus a couple players who we think can stabilize this thing and get us to where we need to go, and then, build a platform for next season. I'm with you, Dave. I would do it as soon as they can possibly do it. I just also am willing to be patient with what the timing of that looks like, because financially for the club, it would of course be better if they could just let this contract play out, get to Bramley Moore, etc. I just don't think, I think that if we're real, how are we going to actually feel after these next 3 fixtures when we are most likely going to not like the results? And we're going to be itching, and we're going to be like, you know what? Why are we keeping this guy? We've got new owners. Like those conversations will organically just spring up if they haven't already. And I think that will be the time to move forward. But I think that right now, for the next few weeks, he's there. And I think that what happens next will kind of tell us where the owners go from that point forward.
Do you not think, to you first, Keith, before we round it up, do you not think it's ironic that we've been calling for Sean Dyche's head a hell of a lot more than when these new owners have come in? Because we're talking about things where every single one of us, well, who do the Blue Room, most people who listen to us will be saying, I know he still has some people who support him randomly, but when you get to a situation there where you want him gone immediately, which has been for the best part, well, for most of this season so far, I'm guessing for most fans, can't talk through everybody's, through everybody's mind, but we want them gone desperately, and now we're sitting here having a conversation where you probably give him to this time, you give him to that time. I just find it really ironic that we're in that sort of state, given that you've got new owners in. Also, the ownership are renowned for being ruthless in managers that they've had. Just, that's not really asking a question. I just think it's curious to me that we're then in a position to say, you'll probably give him a bit longer. So in many ways, I think it's funny that he's almost got a stay of execution from us as fans.
Oh yeah, it's it's the ultimate game of Everton Devil's Advocate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I mostly record on post-match, so most of my Everton-based chat is reactionary.
Yeah.
What's happened in the previous 2 hours. This is, we've all had a couple of months to ponder the new owners coming in, and now that it's sort of come to fruition, now that it's actually got over the line, it's a sea change in Everton Football Club. It's a huge, momentous day, and it's a massive change. So that gives us a reason to sit and sort of go back on what we've previously said and say, well, actually, is that right? Do we need to think about it a bit further? Just for full clarity, like those sort of breakdowns of segments of games that I've just given up until the end of February there, those are the minimum standards he needs to be making to stay in his job. If he doesn't get anywhere close to them, then he's got to go. You have to make the change. And say we find ourselves recording post-match outside the Denby after Forest, and we've just lost our third in a row. It's a no-brainer. You get rid of him before January. 100%. 100% it goes. We all know he's going at some point, but for this ownership group, the ideal situation is the stability of being able to maintain the status quo for as long as possible, as long as it does not negatively impact the club. If you have a relative degree of safety, and I think what you said earlier, the 5 or 6 squads in this league that we're better than or competitive with is spot on. We have, I'd say this season more than any, there is a cushion where there is 4 or 5 really bad teams, terrible football teams. Off the top of my head, Ipswich, Southampton, Leicester, Wolves, Palace are borderline, and Bournemouth are borderline.
Brentford as well now can't win a game away from home too.
Brentford can't win away
yeah.
apart from obviously,
yeah.
Wait, did we lose to Brentford? Did we draw?
0-0. Was it 0-0? I think we drew 0-0.
Drew 0-0, yeah, because they went down to 10 men, didn't they?
Yeah.
But that was their first point away. West Ham, not a great side. So I'd put us in that same bracket as West Ham, Bournemouth, Palace, Brentford, in terms of ability to win football matches at this stage, at this point in time. And then you've got Leicester, Wolves, Southampton, Ipswich, who realistically 3 of those 4 are gone. So this season we do have that extra degree of safety that we haven't had. Obviously, you're going to get the odd freak result every now and again. You're going to get those teams playing against each other, as we saw with Ipswich beating Wolves last weekend, which can make things uncomfortable. But in our games against those 4 teams, we should be winning. We should be beating those teams, realistically. So I think even if Dyche stays on till May, I don't think we'll be in a relegation scrap. I don't think we'll finish higher than 15th, but I don't think we'll be in a relegation scrap. Coming down to the last month of the season. So it's on them then. Do they play the long game? Do they sound out a new replacement for next season early? Like we've said, they must have ideas on who they want. Obviously, football changes all the time. People get offers, people get sacked, new people become available. You don't know. But they should have a short list right now of 3 or 4 managers that they want for next season, who they feel would do a job. I know it's the first day in the job, but they need to hit the ground running with this, because it's essentially you're building for the next 5 years of the club's future.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, mate. I think as well, when you I think you're right in what you're saying. I follow what you say in terms of get this season settled over stability is the right word you're saying, and it's exactly the word that we're going to be putting at the intro on this. But it's spot on.
I'm going to get absolutely ripped apart in the comments for this, by the way. I know this. I'll hold my hands up now. And do you know what? You'll probably be right as well, because I'm the same. I don't want him as Everton manager long term.
Yeah.
But I've got my full devil's advocate hat on here. I have gone complete Keanu Reeves, and I'm trying to keep him in a job until May. Yeah. I don't know why. Why am I trying to keep? I don't know. I just try to save the new owners the money of sacking him now.
Yeah,
and sack him in the summer when he's got a year left on his contract or whatever. I don't know how long he's got left on his contract.
I think he's got till the summer, hasn't he? As well as Starwell.
Well, Thelwell's gone in the summer as well, is he?
Yeah, well, that's out of contract, both of them. Yeah.
Well, he's on probation as well, then, isn't he? I think the first thing they need to do with Thelwell is get him in some sort of a business suit and ditch those bloody quarter zips that he wears everywhere.
Yeah, look a bit more professional behind the boards.
Yeah. Sorry, I've gone on a bit there. I've gone on a bit so much that Rob's left us. He got bored and went off.
It takes a lot for Rob Vera to stop talking, mate.
I know. I've outrobbed him. I've outrobbed him today.
Right, that, like you said, mate, it's not often you step away from post-match, so that's exactly why you've done it. I think you've decided to dive in there head first.
This might be my first opportunity on Weekly, I think. I've done a few kickabouts.
Yeah.
Obviously a mailbag regular, but I don't think Matt doesn't trust me on the Weekly. I'm too renegade.
Yeah. No, mate, you're absolutely fine, and I think you're spot on for everything we debated there anyway, but that is the first weekly that we've done since our brand new owners come in. Let's see how they go. Let's hope they sack Sean Dyche. I'm joking. Let's hope they get things.
Get rid. Get him going by Sunday. Give Duncan a bell. He's free.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone wants Baines in. Get Baines in. Get Cahill in. Get all of those that everyone seems to want. So loads of people.
What's Lee Carsley up to? Give it Lee Carsley till the end of the season.
Lee Carsley till the end of the season.
Lee Carsley might be just going to throw it. Might be an left field shout there.
Yeah.
And he's moving forward.
I was going to say I need to have a look at that when we're finished. If the prices have changed on the odds on who's going to become the new Everton manager, that's if and when Sean Dyche gets sacked, as we've probably debated for the last hour. But thanks for listening to us as always. Great to have Keith on in a rare appearance on the weekly. He'll no doubt be back on. You're back on Sunday as well for the post match.
I'm not there Sunday. No, I have
that's a Sunday, isn't it?
Christmassy commitments, unfortunately, so I won't be there Sunday. But I will be back after Forest and probably calling for Sean Dyche's head.
If it hasn't already gone.
If it hasn't already gone. If it's not mounted on the wall of the Denby.
Thanks a lot to everyone for listening, as always. Leave your comments all over the place. We've got bagfuls coming this week, as you can imagine, with all of the change that's gone on at the club. Matt and Paddy are back for a second byline as well, talking about all this sort of thing we've referred to in the way in which they do it. I think we've got another show as well. We will hear you again, I think, Keith, because there's going to be a Royal Rumble pre-Christmas show on Mailbag.
Oh, fantastic!
So I can see you licking your lips for that already. So
I love it.
That's to come with Les. So yeah, bagful's coming up. Thanks for listening to us, and again, as I say, give us a follow, give us a review, give us your opinion, and we're on YouTube as well, as always. So we'll speak to you again. Up the toffees.